Welcome back. We are joined by UFC featherweight Nathaniel Wood fighting Morgan Charriere at UFC Fight Night 255, the O2 in London. How are you doing, Nathaniel?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. I've been out a couple of days with a migraine attack, which never's nice. But yeah, I'm happy. I've got a fight booked. I'm ready to rock. So my fight camp doesn't start till next week. And yeah, I'm just happy to be back doing what I love to do. Getting back on the stage and having a purpose in training, if you like.
Yeah, you've been out, I want to say, like 8 months now?
It will be 8 months by the time I fight.
Right, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. So you just beat Daniel Pineda in July. A little bit of an extended break. Is there a reason why you needed 8 months? Is there a specific reason for it?
So unfortunately, at the moment, my daughter's going through some health conditions.
Got it.
She's a newborn. She's only 8 months old. So at the moment, because we've got some health conditions going on, it's making traveling a little bit hard. Because one, I can't take her with me, and two, I'm kind of needed at home at the moment. So obviously, with the UFC coming to London, it makes sense. I don't even have to leave my house. I literally just go to the event, go to the venue, come home. I can be at home with her. Unfortunately, most of the cards at the moment have been very far away. So it's whether I want to leave her to go halfway across the world when I'm kind of needed at home. And the thing is, even though I can do it, it's being in the right mindset to fight. And it's not a time where I can be fighting not in that right mind frame. These are the fights now where I need to win them. I'm not at an age where I've got loads of time on my side. So the last thing that I need to do is be losing a fight because I'm not in the right mind frame. I'm too busy thinking about what's going on at home and not what's in front of me. So, everything at the moment, touch wood, it's going well. We're on good positive stuff with her health. So, yeah, it's starting to relax a little bit, which is nice. And yeah, as I say, as soon as I saw that they were coming to London, I just said, look, regardless of my situation, I can be there and I'll be there in the right mind frame.
We'll be back to the video in just a second, but first, the NFL season is coming to an end. We've got the conference championship games coming up this weekend. Whether or not your team is in the big game does not matter because Inside Fighting has a way to get you guys closer to all the action. And right now we've partnered up with our friends over at DraftKings, an official partner of the NFL. And if you're a new DraftKings customer, go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, bet $5, you'll receive $200 of bonus bets instantly, all by using our promo code Inside Fighting at sign up. You can use those bonus bets on same game parlays, or if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry about it. Just go play DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports and get in on the action there. Again, the conference championship games are coming up this weekend, and if you want to get closer to all the action, go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, bet $5, get $200 of bonus bets instantly, only if you use our promo code Inside Fighting on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. The crown is yours. So yeah, this feels like a big fight. Obviously, both of you guys are highly touted prospects, but like you're from the UK. Morgan is from France. Does this feel like one of the biggest fights of your career to this point?
I definitely feel like it is one of the biggest in the sense where there's more eyes on this one. Obviously Morgan has a massive following in France. I have a massive following in the UK. So it's England versus France, it's going to make for a very big fight. And I feel like outside of the UFC rankings, this is maybe one of the biggest fights that I think the UFC could have put together in regards to bringing eyes to the table. I feel like a lot of people are going to tune in on this one. I think there's a lot of guys that aren't in the UFC rankings who no one would have necessarily cared too much if I was matched against. So I think this makes for an exciting fight. We're both former Cage Warriors world champions. We're both very good MMA fighters. We both know each other very well. And yeah, I'm excited to get it on March 22nd.
Yeah, and now I saw that you posted a DM on your Instagram account. I have to ask that. I'm assuming that was with Morgan when you guys found out that you were fighting each other, right?
Yes, yeah. We put a little DM there just to say, should we still get a beer after the fight?
Yeah.
No,
So will you be getting a beer with him after the fight?
that's the plan. I'm not a
Yeah.
big beer drinker, but I think after a good fight of the night fight, we earn that beer together.
Yeah. So this fight, it seems like there's some good respect between you guys. There's not a lot of beef going into this fight.
No, 100%. We at the end of the day, this is a sport. We are martial artists. We go up against each other. We go up against the best in the world. If you want to have a beef with me, if you like, for me, it's got to be real. There's no fake with me. I'm not here to fake a beef to try and draw more attention to the fight. I believe my fighting does the talking. I believe that I have a personality that if people they will tune in to watch me, and if they don't, I couldn't care less. I'm here to be me and to do what I love to do. I think Morgan obviously is the same. I think he's got a huge following in France because of him as a person and not because of fake, this kind of, like, let's call it Colby Covington persona. So yeah, we're just two guys that are going to throw down, and try and knock each other out and then get a beer after.
Yeah, love that. Does it add that extra juice for you though, knowing that it's UK versus France? We all know the history of the UK and France, so I mean, this is like it's kind of like the Battle of Europe a little bit. Does that add extra juice for you personally? Just knowing you're going to be in front of the O2 in London, and his big win just coming off of like him getting the crowd riled up in Paris. It kind of feels like that a little bit, right?
It does, in the sense where on the UFC post that they put on Instagram, all I'm seeing is like the people putting French flags on the emojis and the pirate flags, and yeah, it does get it a bit more exciting. It's
Yeah.
that England versus France. At the end of the day, they're all saying he's the pirate, but have you seen our British Navy? So yeah, I'm looking forward to having a. I still think obviously the London crowd's going to outweigh the French cheers or boos, but as long as there's a buzz in that arena, that's all I want. And in France, when I fought Charles Jourdain, all they did was boo me. That still gassed me up. As long as
Right.
there's in that arena, you're going to see the best Nathaniel Wood. So yeah, I'm looking forward.
I mean, I got to tell you, when I was in France, that was one of the best crowds I've ever been to. But I've never been to a crowd in the UK. How do you think? Do you think that the UK fans have like a better, like a just better overall fan atmosphere than in Paris? Because Paris was pretty incredible, if I'm being honest.
Whoa, yeah. So very similar, but I believe that maybe France or Paris, should I say, were maybe slightly louder. But I'm going to put that down to the event that I was at was the first ever event in Paris.
Right.
So as you can imagine, it's always been the sport in general has been illegal in France. So
Yeah.
for them to obviously get the first ever UFC event, it was crazy in there. They did boo me, which I'm absolutely fine with because obviously I was fighting one of their guys. But that boo, that energy, that vibe, that's all I need. I can have cheers, great, boos, great. The energy is what I need. For me, the worst thing would be if it was dead silent. If it was dead
Yeah.
quiet, like fighting, I guess maybe at the Apex or in UFC Fight Island, that's when it's a little bit like, yeah. So as long as there's a buzz in there, I'm
Yeah.
happy. I think that this is going to be the people's main event. I think the crowd's going to absolutely erupt when we come out.
Well, I agree. And speaking of the Apex, there is talk that potentially that they might phase out the Apex. It hasn't been confirmed yet. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like that's like just in terms of fighting there? Obviously, you can't get the buzz from the crowd, but do you feel like it's time for the UFC to move on from that, or do you still think it serves a purpose?
I think to an extent it still serves a purpose, and definitely from, I guess, the business side of things, because it probably doesn't cost them a penny to put it on.
Right.
But as a fan, man, I want to see the crowd.
Yeah.
We want to see crowds. And for me, I think there's so many UFC events these days that I get lost, if I'm honest. I haven't got time to keep up with all of it. So for me, I'm all for the quality over quantity. Maybe do less events, but make them absolutely unbelievable. But you've got a lot of fighters. So I understand that,
Yeah.
from a business aspect, they've got to get people working. They've got to get people fighting and earning their money. So yeah, for me, I'm a big fan of the crowd. I want to see stadiums. I want to see them go to, Wembley Arena, stuff like that. That's the stuff that, I think that the UFC should try and do. And I believe that they can do it.
Yeah, some would say there might be too many fighters now, but I guess the UFC is still pretty young. Well, they're still growing. But on the topic of England, just in terms of British MMA and where it's at right now, obviously Tom Aspinall is sort of like on top of the MMA world in the UK. Where do you think how do you think British MMA is doing in terms of like how it stacks up against the rest of the world and just like where you guys are at right now?
I think when you look at how small our country is compared to the rest of the world, we're doing good. We're
Yeah,
doing got obviously no longer champ, but we've got Leon Edwards, we've got Tom Aspinall, we've got myself, we've got Paddy Pimblett, who's a huge star, we got Arnold Allen, we've got so much talent in the UFC and so many stars in the UFC for such a small country. I think it's pretty unbelievable. So yeah, I think we're doing well, and I think we're starting to show that back in the day, a lot of fighters used to have to travel stateside and
yeah.
travel abroad to get the training in. Now, I think the young up and comers are seeing that we've got it all in our hometown.
I totally agree with that. Shifting gears for a second here, I wanted to bring something up because I was doing a little research on your social media. I saw you put out a post about helping out like displaced animals, dogs that need to be adopted. I'm just curious, is that something that you've always been interested in?
I'm a big dog lover,
Okay,
but I've got a few charities that I work with, and one of them, the one that you've just seen, the Power of One, they're a dog charity. Now, what they do is they kind of act as a middleman. So they go around the world and find individual places that are trying to look after dogs in countries that, don't really appreciate dogs, maybe like we do. And
right.
they fund and give money to people that can't necessarily get it or they just have no backing. And mate, some of the stories they've told me is it sends shivers down your spine. Obviously, as I say, a big dog lover myself. I've got a dog. To hear the stuff that goes on, it breaks my heart. So if I can just play a small part in helping them gain support, gain traction, gain traffic, money, whatever it is, then I'll be a happy man. And it's a non-profit organization, so every penny donated goes to the dogs or the people that are there trying to, help save these dogs. And another charity that I work with is the Paul Strength Charitable Trust, which is for children, mainly children that have got terminally ill, and
Yeah.
they're trying to do the best they can. And if we're all gonna die one day, so I think it's about how many people can you help on that little journey that we're in. So yeah, I try and use my audience or my social media, if you like, as much as possible to benefit others.
That's amazing. I mean, I know here in LA we have there's a lot of displaced, obviously for children that's super important too. But to go back to the dogs, there are a lot of like displaced animals after the fires. So there's like all sorts of charities going around. So
Yeah.
like we've been helping out and stuff like that in any way that we can. So I appreciate it because I'm a dog lover myself. So I was happy to see that. You have how many pets do you have right now, by the way?
So right now I have one Belgian Malinois. So
Okay,
I'm trying to get another one, but the wife said she'll divorce me if I get one more. So
okay.
I
That,
think
that
I'll have to put it on hold.
that's a beautiful breed. I mean, but are you an adopt don't shop guy, or do you like to have like the more like classic breed of dog?
So that's the only dog I've personally owned. My family dog was a Staffordshire Bull Terrier.
Yeah,
Uh, and for me, the dog is family. That dog
yeah.
sleeps on my bed. He's a protection dog. But if someone was trying to rob my car outside the front, there's no way I'm letting my dog go. I'm going first because
Right, 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 right,
that's my
right.
boy. I'll take a
Yeah.
bullet for my dog, and people think I'm crazy when I say that, but I guess some people just don't understand the love that you can have between those animals. And yeah, he is literally like me, but in dog form. He's energetic. He's just matches my personality. So I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate to have him.
They say that dogs adapt the personality of the owner over time, so that doesn't surprise me. Sorry, I know I've taken up a lot of your time. I only have a few more for you here, but I just wanted to sort of quickly go over this because I also, you've sort of been outspoken about mental health and OCD, and I'm just curious if you wouldn't mind sharing, just as somebody who to describe it to somebody who might not know, like what sort of things, how does that impact your day-to-day life? And like what sort of things do you have to do to sort of temper it or treat it?
So I personally am diagnosed with OCD and anxiety. I would say it's the OCD for me, which is the worst. That's the kind of thing that's crippling. It can almost put me in a little prison in my own mind, and when people say OCD, they usually think, oh, you just got to have things in symmetry, or something's got to be in a certain way. That's not like that for me at all. OCD is when you have obsessive, it can be thoughts. So I could have a thought about, let's just say, I'm going to use an example. I might have a headache and I have a thought that it is cancer. And I am going to obsess over that thought all day. And to try and reason with that thought, I'll come up with a compulsion, which might be touching wood. It might be hold your breath for 10 seconds. And what that does is that relieves that thought that I've had. And maybe you'll think, okay, if I do this, it won't mean that what it is that I'm thinking is real. And that can go on all day. And I unfortunately never got diagnosed when I was a child, but I had it when I was a child. I had obsessions about going to hell. I remember I was probably 5 years old, and I would be obsessed with asking my mum if I'm going to go to hell for any little thing that I'd done wrong. And unfortunately, it is very crippling that you can't necessarily get the thoughts out of your head, and it will always antagonize you with the things that mean the most to you. So as I say, growing up, my fear was going to hell. If I've got a headache, my biggest fear would be, could it be cancer? And it will always latch onto those things and try and make them seem as real as possible to get your body in that sort of fight or flight mode, thinking that it's protecting it when it's not. And if you're dealing with what I would say is crippling thoughts that you just can't get out of your head, there's a good chance that you're dealing with OCD. And I would definitely say go and talk to someone. I'm very fortunate that I've got good family around me, so I have always been able to talk and be open with my worries and insecurities. But if you don't talk out, I think it can be very scary, because when you're in your own mind, sometimes the most ridiculous, unrealistic thoughts can seem very real. And I'm glad now that I've got therapy, I'm on medication for it, and I've got professional help. So now when I'm going through my dark days, if you like, I know what I'm dealing with and I know how I overcome it.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I mean, we only see the world through our own eyes, right? So
Yeah.
whenever something's in our head, we're only having that conversation with ourselves. So if you're not talking to somebody else who can give you a different perspective to help you, you're sort of like that. That's like a one-way ticket to like going crazy and it getting even worse. So I appreciate what you're saying, and obviously like your countryman Paddy Pimblett has spoken up about like suicide and things like that, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. More guys should speak, more fighters should speak up on this and
Well,
not make it such a stigma in the industry.
but for me, when I originally was thinking about talking about it, I thought, do you know what? I'm not going to, because Tyson Fury's doing it, and I don't want people to think that I'm doing it for clout or that
Sure.
I'm jumping on a bandwagon. Now, I think I just made a slight comment about it once in an interview, and then all of a sudden it just got out there. And I was like, I'm not going to lie about it. I'm going to talk honestly. And I can tell you now, I've never had one person say to me, oh, you're jumping on a bandwagon. But I have had hundreds and hundreds of messages of people telling me how much it's helped them, how much that knowing a UFC fighter is dealing with something similar to what they're dealing with, and it's made them feel better. I've had some messages of people telling me they're going through, I think it was chemotherapy, and that I've made it easier by talking about it. And I'm like, man, whether these people are being 100% genuine with the comments or not, that's amazing. You're
Yeah.
telling me that I can help people by just talking about something that I'm not embarrassed to talk about. I just never felt the need to speak about it. And since then, I've been all for it. I'm like, listen, I will help and talk to as many people as I physically can, because sometimes, I do get messages that get lost in the requests. But yeah, if I can help people, as I say, on this small little journey we call life, then, I'm here for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I only have a couple more for you here. Just curious, your thoughts on your division champion, Ilia Topuria, has talked about potentially moving up to lightweight. Curious your thoughts on that. We have a big title fight coming up. I don't know if whether it's Arman or Islam going to be champion, but how do you think Topuria would fare moving on? Do you think he should clean out the division first? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Do you know what? He's such a big superstar that I think he can just do whatever he wants and it's going to do well. I think he's got the skill set to go up. Obviously, We all saw the Max Holloway fight, and Max is a very big featherweight, and I'll go into lightweight. So yeah, I think Ilia does very well going up. Obviously, he does very well if he stays where he is. We've got the same manager now, so I imagine that my manager's going to try and not get us to fight each other, but he's obviously way ahead of than where I am at the moment. So it would be nice to see him go to lightweight and make some exciting fights. And if he stays at featherweight, then it'll be nice to see him, clear out the division until I get there one day.
There you go. I love that. All right, last question for you. Thank you so much for your time, man. We're here in the early start of 2025. What's like your ultimate goal for the year? What are your ultimate goals for this year?
So my ultimate goal is to get my daughter healthy, get her in the best place that she can be. Because now, obviously, that she's here, my life's changed. My original life's purpose was become UFC champion of the world, and now my life's purpose is just to make sure that my daughter's safe and happy. So yeah, get her health where it needs to be, and in my career-wise, just be as active as I can be. That's the whole reason I went up a weight category. I want to be active. Not having to do long weight cuts means that I'm able to take shorter notice fights, and get into that top 10 and start showing people that I'm one of the best fighters in the world.
Yeah, I completely forgot to mention that you were jumping up weight categories here. So, because I know weight cuts, you talk about that a lot on your Instagram and how big of a deal that is. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what you're gonna do. And yeah, man, I appreciate you bearing with me on this audio journey that I had on this episode. But you're the man. I enjoyed talking to you, and I'd like to do it again.
Yeah, been an absolute pleasure. So thanks for having me.
All right, I appreciate it, man.
Cheers, mate.
All right, take care.